So I don't know about you, but conflict can feel so overwhelming. I was talking to a client recently, and they were just explaining to me how they're at work, and one of their colleagues gives them like unsolicited advice, and sometimes that advice is constructive feedback, and that this constructive feedback actually sends my client into a place where they feel like they're really being criticized and it feels really uncomfortable. And today I want to share with you my top reason for why conflict feels so hard, as well as what we can do with this information. So, one of the things that we need to kind of keep in mind, and I think it's just really important for us all to have awareness of, it's just that at the end of the day, we are all animals. I think that that's something we as humans like to forget, but we are animals and our brains are wired for survival. And I have this image here from Psychotherapy Central on Instagram, and she's breaking down the sort of three different areas of the brain that get impacted by trauma and what the impact of that is. I'm not going to read it to you, but if you want to pause the video and take a look, there it is. But you have these areas of our brain that serve different functions, and one of those being the part of the brain that is like the rational, logical, sense-making part of our brain. This is the part of our brain that's being used for, like, I gotta go grocery shopping and this is what I need from the store, or where do I want to go today? Like, it's the part of our brain that's like making plans, right? It's taking a lot of energy. And when that part of our brain is being used, when we are feeling very like calm and present, and like it's us who's in the front seat, the real survival part of our brain, that instinctual part of our brain, is kind of taking a back seat a little bit. Like, it's just running in the background, and we're not really aware of it too much. And when your survival brain kicks in, it actually is, I think, can kind of be like a balancing of scales almost, where sometimes the logical part is taking up more room. It's the more prevalent piece that's operating. And then other times it is the survival brain. And when the survival brain is more active, that logical sense making part is the one that's taking the backseat. And I say all that to say, I say all of that to say, because for some of us as kids, this is my experience too. Maybe when we were kids, or when you were a kid, you had a parent who's really critical of you. And your parent, I don't know, like, they just yelled at you or criticized you all the time. And it was like, you can't do anything right. Um, they're not happy with the stuff that you're doing. It feels like you're trying all the time to improve or to make them happy, but it's just never enough. And so your brain as a kid is registering all of these interactions, and it's processing it as, I don't feel safe because this parent is criticizing me. And I know that sometimes criticism, especially from parents, like, it isn't just like a, I don't know, regular tone speaking voice of criticism. Like, it also often comes with like yelling too. And even for some people, like physical violence as well. And so your little kid brain is like, this is not safe. I don't feel safe. How do I stop this? And that's where we get into the like flight, fright, freeze, fawn, flock responses that you may have heard of before. But what this does basically is, then as an adult, when your colleague is wanting to give you an invitation for improvement, and they're, maybe pointing out things that you don't feel like need to be pointed out or something, that invitation, that feedback that they're trying to give you, can then activate that same sort of like panic and fear that you experienced as a kid when you were getting yelled at and criticized. And it's going to stimulate and bring back up those feelings of, I'm not good enough, I can't do this right, I always do this wrong, I'll never make them happy. Like, it can bring back up those feelings. And now we are placing the emotional experiences of fear, from when we were like a kid, or when we had an early similar experience. We're placing those emotions on the present day and on the situation that's in front of us now. So that's why it's going to just kind of map out. It's like, we learned this pattern in the past. This is what this means when someone is dissatisfied by you. or when someone is offering you feedback that feels critical, this is what that feels like. And so the brain is just patterning that out into the future. And I want to point out that not only is this happening to you, right? So for my client, my client was talking about this experience of just really not wanting to like be in this process of getting feedback from their colleague and how uncomfortable that made them, right? And it's so easy to also only consider our experience of a thing, but it's also important to keep in mind when we are the person who is giving someone feedback, or when we are the person who is asking someone to be accountable, or we're inviting them into a process of some kind, that that person also is going to have this experience happening where their panic comes up, where they feel activated, where their past story is now being mapped onto this situation. And it's those dynamics to me that are what is making conflict feel so hard, is because it very rarely, our experience of conflict in the present day, very rarely is the response to it matching the actual situation in the present. I know for myself personally, I see it with my friends, with my partner, with my family, that will be in these moments of conflict and tension today, but we're bringing along with us years and years and years and years and years and years and years of these past experiences and stories and pain and trauma and hardship and sadness around situations that felt similar. Now, I don't have any expectation of you to like all of a sudden tomorrow be perfectly skilled at regulating your emotions and being able to like be a gold star student with conflict management, right? But I will say that since I learned this information, that it has changed how I follow through after my initial sort of activation when I'm in conflict with people. Because sometimes I might be having a super chill conversation with a friend, and they'll say something that all of a sudden, like, I didn't like it, you know? Like, now I'm sad, I'm mad, I'm frustrated, whatever, and I'm having this initial emotional response, and I might feel flooded with emotion. And like I said, these are emotions from the past. Like, it isn't really applicable here. And I'll have that realization to say, these feelings I'm having feel way bigger than what this situation calls for. And then I can tell my friend or the person that I'm talking to, I can ask for a little bit of a break so that I can sort my thoughts. Or I might just ask them straight up, like, can you tell me what you meant by that? Because sometimes we are just misinterpreting people, and that often leads to like conflict or tension within our relationships. So I hope that this awareness of why conflict can feel so hard, I hope that it helps you to know that being uncomfortable in conflict is okay, that's to be expected, but that it doesn't have to be as confusing or disorienting or overwhelming. If you liked this video, I'd really appreciate if you subscribe to my newsletter. I'm Kiana, and I've been on a journey to build care-based communities that can survive conflict, and I want to share with you the insights, tips, tools, resources, and other kinds of wisdom that I've learned over the past few years that has really helped me, and I want to help you by sharing that wisdom. So subscribe to my newsletter again. The link is down in the description.